Hey, welcome back, everybody. I am so happy you joined us today. Have one of the folks here that I follow religiously. I think he's hilarious. I think he's insightful. I think he's real. So Troy Barter, he is now the head of revenue at Rocket Shipping. He has a great newsletter out called Up Your Sales Game. He's got one of the course development. I think it's phenomenal. Full sales development course, 6.5 hours of video content for free, which is, I think, great. It's going to be a pleasure. But Troy, how are you today, man?
Doing well, man. Happy to be on here. I know we've interacted quite a bit. It's nice to get on here and chop it up, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have Joe up here. Joe's just been on me. He's like, Dave, can I come join? I'm like, sure, man. So Joe is here as well. But Joe's been in tech sales, what, Joe? Like 12? Like, how long you been in sales, bro? 20?
Yes, 2011, 2010. I just wanted to see how the magic was made. I'm always watching it after the fact. I wanted to see it live.
Yeah, the magic. That's exactly how I would describe this thing that I do. Yes, exactly. So Troy, let's hop in, man, because I do want to. I always try and keep this a little contained, but I'll go wherever you want it. But I always tell folks on here, like I scroll LinkedIn, I look at all your history, and I can kind of get like what I find is just curious, right? Like I read all your stuff, but some stuff I'm just more curious than others. You did something on the SDR role, which has been a hot topic lately of like what it's going to be, and is the AE a full cycle, and that's where it's going. You talked about how this role may go away due to technology if people don't change and don't do things that only humans can do, man. Can
Yep.
you like talk on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, man. I've been saying this too, like for a few years, like because here's my theory on it, man. I think it's kind of turning into law because I've been saying this for years, and it seems to keep materializing, right? So, like, you have LinkedIn, and you have all of these influencers, thought leaders is probably a better term for LinkedIn, really, gurus, whatever. And the goal of a guru at the end of the day is to grow and then be able to monetize. That's how most of them have done it. Like traditionally, you look at any of them and they probably have an offering, and that's kind of usually the end game. It might not have started that way, but it usually is how it ends that way. So we know we're all in sales, right? So if you want to sell something to people, then what do you need? You need the widest funnel possible of addressable leads that can convert, right? So that being said, when you toss in the Pareto principle, right? So what's that? 20%, the 80-20 rule, right? So usually 20% of your people give you 80% of your results. So what does that mean? It means 80% of your people give you 20% of your results. And that is law, man. Everywhere I've ever worked at where I've looked at the Pareto principle and applied it, it almost always plays out right down to the number, like exact. So if you are somebody who's a thought leader that's looking to monetize with salespeople, it doesn't take long to figure out that 80% of them aren't good, and they're struggling, and they're probably always will be struggling. So if you want to convert and have the largest funnel possible of addressable leads, and you want to grow your account where you have that large number next to your name, it's easier and better, and you get more engagement if you cater your content to making the 80% of the people that are losing feel better and load them up with excuses, then cater to the 20% that are doing the 80% of the results. And that's what's led to, hey, you could just automate all of this. Here's a way to do it where you don't have to wake up until noon. Like, here's all of the easy ways of being able to do it all. I've got a whole course on it, or I'm partnered with this company that helps automate and do this. And this is all that you need to do. When in reality, it'll never be that way. And the day that it becomes easy in sales is the day that none of us have a job, because it means that if it's easy enough, people will not be needed for it. That's just a fact, right? We're in tech sales. What are we selling? I mean, like Joe, you said you've been in tech sales since like 2010, 2011. Generally, what we're selling, at least what I've been doing for the past decade, is, hey, you know how you're doing that one thing where you have a whole bunch of people that have to help you do it? What if you didn't have to have all those people do it? Because the computer could do it for you. We have a piece of software that'll generate a larger return. Right now I've got 3 great AEs. Oh man, we're kicking ass. We're ready to grow. You think I'm looking to hire more AEs? Absolutely not. I'm going to leverage as much tech as possible to make the most out of the AEs that I have. And once I have the best motion, then I'll grow it. So long story short is you have all of this information from all of these trusted sources that are beating the drum of cold calling is dead because everyone would love for it to be dead. Because if it's dead, it means you don't have to do it anymore. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, it's not dead. It'll never be dead. And if it is dead, then sales is dead too, because it means that we no longer need people. So all that I say is like, no, you use you use all of those tools that salespeople are using right now to try to cheat the system, but that doesn't mean that you don't do the work. That opens up the ability for you to do the work more and more often, and maybe leverage some more tech on top of that. This will really appeal to like one 15-year-old that might have stumbled onto this, and like three other people that are grown men like me that happen to like have played Fortnite before. But you used to be able to get this thing where it would augment you, right? You'd get a choice on there of one of four different things. And it's like, oh, if I choose this augment, it makes me jump higher. If I choose this one, it makes me do this. AI is just augmenting you as a salesperson. That's all that it is. But the day that AI, if Fortnite had AI where it can just auto like zoom in on somebody and shoot them for you, then what's the point of playing the game? There's no point in it anymore. You're augmenting yourself. You're making yourself as efficient as possible. But the day that you completely lean in on the things that make you not unique as a human being salesperson, then eventually you will be replaced. And you should be replaced, really, because you're kind of taking advantage of software. That's what the owners of the business generally do, not the person who is at an entry level role. You need to find the ways that make you unique so you can hopefully move up, but at the very least, carve out a nice niche where you can make money. That was long. That was a lot to say, but that's kind of my thought on it, man, is that like there's a lot of influencers that like you see it all the time where they fall into like the second an influencer gets engagement on something, like really good engagement on something, they generally will continue to lean into that and they'll expand on it. And if they, a lot of them you'll notice will realize like, oh man, the way to do it is to tell people that they're more than their number. Like the way to do it is to like tell them like, here's a hug. Here's all the excuses that you can have. This will make you feel better short term. It'll be a real pain for you long term when you don't make any money though. And it sucks, but that is a large part of what's out there. And it's tough for like someone that's just like looking for like the good advice. The good advice is, man, this shit's tough. It's going to stay tough. But if you embrace it and you really bust your ass, you will create habits where the things that were tough aren't really tough anymore. And then you become good at it. And then you become confident. And then you hang your hat on the things that are tough. And that's like the fun part of your job now because people can't believe that you're good at it. And it's what you like, it's part of your identity almost that you're willing to do those tough things. And those are generally the people that, in my experience, make the most money. They have the longest staying power. The tools that they bring to the game at a job are the ones that are the most irreplaceable and are the most sought after and are the most expensive. And I would say is really kind of what I meant by if SDRs don't change their outlook and they don't look at it like, how can I provide the most value as a human being? And how can I leverage these tools to make me more valuable as a human being? Then they will eventually be replaced. And it's really already happening.
Fuck yeah. There you go. I mean, I knew that would look, that's why I started off there. It's because I knew that you had emotion in it. I love the message. I wanted to have you expand on it and just hear it in your voice. But let me just offer this, and I'm not saying I believe in it, but it's just what you hear a lot, right?
Yep.
Still connection rates, right? And who I'm trying to call. And I don't pick up the phone like I have my phone set now, just recently now to if you're in my phone, it rings. If not, you're heading to voicemail. I'll figure it out later, right? And go from there. Right, wrong, that's how I have it.
Yep.
What would you say to those folks now who I'm trying to cold call, who I'm not in my phone, it's going to voicemail, etc., etc.? Where does that argument lie with you then?
Well, there's tools, but I mean, what's the worst connect rate right now is probably the best way of looking at it. I'd say it's probably 5%, and it used to be 20% 5 years ago
Sure.
is the best way like that I would say. So there's ways to improve your connect rate. And some of it is leveraging that technology that we're talking about, right? Like there are ways where if you call from a different number and if you have a dialer, but that dialer is very religious about kicking out the numbers that hit as spam and not the other ones, and you dial and the phone number is one that's local, and then someone has a higher likelihood of picking it up. And also, if it can get through more dials within your dial period, so that 5% turns into 10%, if you can do twice the amount of dials in a way that makes sense, then it's still worthwhile at the end of the day. On top of that, like you said, it hits voicemail. Leave a voicemail. Morgan Ingram, to me, had the best advice. And I don't know if he got it elsewhere, but to me, it's the best one of all time. People don't listen to voicemails. They read the text that pops up on their phone. So you position your voicemail like it's a text message. And when you do that, are you going to get somebody that replies to you right away? Not necessarily, but there's a chance that you might call again. And every touch point is a chance for you to brand yourself. It's a chance for you to turn it into less of a cold call because you're creating familiarity, right? Hey, I talked to you on LinkedIn, or hey, I sent you an email, that old email reference opener that still works that Jed Marley uses. We train it in the course as well. It's not just call all the time, right? No, email too. Get creative, get on LinkedIn. Video works insanely well for us at Rocket, like insanely well. We're really close to landing a deal that's the largest one in the company. And Luke Ruffing is the one that's going to land it. He's been here a month. Not he just got out of onboarding a month ago. He's been here a month because he cold calls and he leverages video and he did it in a great way. So, but it's just, if you're doing all of that and then you're like, but I'm not calling, I'm just doing these things, man, you're kidding yourself. Because that 5% connection, all right, cool. So what's that mean? If you call 20, one's going to pick up. How hard is it to dial 20 if the 19 aren't picking up? It don't take that long. So how many connections can you get in the day? And out of those connections, how many of them can you actually have a conversation with? That connect rate is really just another excuse people can make. And man, it's my favorite quote. It's not mine. It's been attributed to me. You can't make excuses and money at the same time, dude. Right? So like, all right, the connect rates are lower. Okay, well, there's ways to increase it. There's also ways to increase your dials. There's also like by leveraging software and by just leveraging dialing more. If you're connecting less, you should be able to dial more. It's kind of simple on that side of things. But I still I believe in the phone. And a big thing, man, that I think no one talks about is that when people give advice, they usually have only been in one industry. So they're like, this doesn't work anymore. It's like, dude, it doesn't work anymore where you're fucking calling. Like you're calling in to VPs of sales at software companies and they all know the game. You're a magician performing magic tricks to other magicians. That's what you're doing. All right. I work at Rocket Shipping. We're reaching out to warehouse managers in Fargo, North Dakota. They pick the phone up and they'll talk to us for a half hour. And we're offering software too. We have a SaaS offering as well. But it's like everyone that says like, oh, it's dead, it doesn't work anymore. Maybe not to the people that you're calling to. It probably still does, by the way. But that connect rate, it changes an insane amount depending on the industry that you're calling in, who is the persona that you're calling into, the size of the company, all of these different factors in terms of like things that make a giant difference of your connect rate and your success rate when it comes to cold calling. And the same thing applies to email too. So that's why I always tell people when I provide advice, this actually hurts me too, but it's the right way of doing it. Is like, by the way, this works for me. The other way might actually work better for you, just so you know, because you're calling in a different people than I am. And that hurts as like a thought leader because the ones that are like the biggest ones, right? Like Grant Cardone and everyone like that, they're very definitive in what they say. And they're like, this is the only way to do it. If you want to make the most money that you can possible, you got to do it this way. And it's my way. By the way, I have a course for it. And that's not true. Grant doesn't fucking know tech sales. There's no way. I'd fucking wax Grant's ass in tech sales every fucking day of the week. There's no way. He doesn't know the industry. He hasn't done it. There's no way that he knows the prospects the same way that any one of us does. So, but you can't definitively say in tech sales that one thing works for everybody. It doesn't. There's different personality types. There's different prospects they're calling into. You have to have that disclaimer or you're lying so you can get a better response rate and you can get people more bought in to trusting you, To me, I'd rather build long-term trust where it's like, look, I know what I'm talking about. And I've done this at a lot of different places, so I know a lot of different types of people. But because I've done that, I also know that there's a million different ways to skin a cat. And what I like to do isn't always the best route for every single person. It's impossible for someone to say they have the silver bullet. It just, there's no way. There's too many different personality types, too many different companies and industries to call into.
Love it. So this is why it's the best part of my week right here, man. This is it, right? This is that. I can sit here and literally get, I always thought, yeah, I say on this show, I don't know, I've done 50 episodes. I probably said it 42 times. Literally, this is the most fun I have all week. It's because I get to pick your brain for free, right? And listen to what I personally can't get off LinkedIn, because that's why I kind of started this. As I was like, there's a lot of people I want to talk to, and let's share it. And that right there, that to me lends a lot of vision into a lot of different things, right? So let's understand this. You developed a course, I think 6.5 hours long. I was looking through it. I've seen some great reviews, even from folks on my team here. Great reviews. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You have it for free, is that right? Out there, like it's
technically not. I'll really explain the whole thing. Like it's gotten me in
please.
trouble at a lot of places I work at. So it's cool whenever I'm doing something where I don't work for someone, because I can just peel the curtain completely back. So when I started Sales Org, I started it. I didn't know Aspireship existed, but I wanted to do something similar to that. And I thought I had an original idea. People had already done it. Few people had already done it for sure. There was tech sales boot camps. There was all sorts of different stuff. But my thought was, I was building up on TikTok. I was building up on YouTube. I was building up on LinkedIn. And I looked at all the other courses and I was like, the outcome of the course is what is attracting people to it, not the training. Because like, I couldn't tell you who trains the Aspireship's course. I know it's not, people aren't checking for them, not to hate on them or anything like that, but they're not. None of us know. Right. Like, so it was like, all right, well, people would rather get training from me. I know that just based on the response that I get off of TikTok and YouTube. All right, cool. My wife's a recruiter, like by trade, and I could get her in and we wouldn't even have to worry about employees. And I know how to attract businesses and companies and, leaders hit me up all the time. So I can create a course easy, like a boot camp style course that gives you everything you would need within your first 6 to 12 months to be successful in tech sales as a sales development representative. And then we can land like people that are we willing to pay, and we'll like whatever you call it, a recruiting fee or whatever. And that was the model, very similar to an Aspireship. And the course was, I think at the time, like 250. I did something that worked really well where it did 5 figures in like a few days, because I did something where I had like this tiered discount code thing. The first day I did it, I thought it was gonna like be like gangbusters, and then like a few people signed up, and I was like, shit, I'm gonna have to do something different. So like I did this thing where, hey, there's 5 codes here where it's free. Like if you get in fast enough, the code's free. And then there's a code that gets you 90% off for 5. And then there's a code that gets you 85% for 5. And it was like all the way up to like 10%. And then it was like anyone could get it for 10% off the time or something like that. And dude, it worked. I've never seen anyone do it before. I think maybe it's original, but like people would come in and they're like, they originally go in because they're hoping that it's free. And then it's like, well, it's not free. Let me try the next code. And then let me try the next one and the next one. And like they all sold out. All the codes like sold out all the way to the back. And it went well, dude. We had really good hiring partners, like great tech sales companies that were hiring. We got a lot of people hired. And then 2 things happened almost at the same time. My wife got pregnant with, I think at the time, yeah, our fifth. So that was and that's our last one. That's it. Basketball team is good enough for me. 5 is good. Got our last boy, and we're good to go. So she's not recruiting anymore because I retired her beforehand, and it was like, no, you worry about the kids and worry about things that are fulfilling for you, right? And recruiting isn't necessarily that. And on top of that, obviously, this was like a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was the worst time to create this type of company. Massive layoffs, banks going under or close to under in tech sales, like all of that stuff happened within 6 months of us starting the business, right when things were starting to really do well. And I was like, all right, I got 5 kids. This doesn't even make sense to me. How am I going to sell this to someone else when sales and transference of certainty? Let's make the course really inexpensive for people that want to get it. We're not going to do the recruiting side. And I'm going to go out there and get another like head of revenue or VP of sales job, and we'll build it slowly, and we'll probably change the way that we're doing it. And I've changed it a lot of different ways. Um, since partnering with Seamless, it's changed quite a bit because that's why I can make it free. Don't get me wrong, I could make it free right now, but I'd make no money off of it. And it's a 6.5 hour course. I didn't spend 6.5 hours making the course. That's how long the video is in it. So I had to write all of those. I had to film all of them. I had to edit all of them. I had to do all of this extra stuff. Like, dude, it took forever. It was a lot of work to make the course. And it's like, man, it'd be nice to make like, I don't know, something off of it, but I also would like to give it away for free because it's kind of an entry level course, right? So it's like, these are the last people that you should be charging for a course at the end of the day. So I wasn't sure what to do with it, honestly. I'd go on TikTok live and I'd have a discount code where people could get it for like 25 bucks. If they like the shit I was talking on TikTok, giving advice, hey, you can get the course and it's like the cost of like a meal at McDonald's. What are we talking about? And it'll help you out and whatever. I was making a little bit off of it. And Brandon, you guys obviously know, CEO at Seamless, was like, hey man, we were always trying to find a way to work together over the past couple of years. He liked my content. I liked his. And he was like, I want to make you an advisor. I was like, dude, hell yeah, let's do it. And got the idea where it's like, all right, the way advisor stuff works is like, you obviously it's pretty obvious. You get a link, you market the company, but I was a Seamless customer. Like I really, really like Seamless and I always have. I think it's the best option, not to like talk it up or anything like that, but I really do. It's part of why I'm so glad to be partnered with them. But I was like, all right, well, like if they use my link and they sign up for free credits, like there's a small compensation to that, right? It's like, all right, like obviously, it's not like I'm kind of really, telling something that people don't obviously know ahead of time, but it's like, all right, and they don't have to enter a credit card and there's nothing, but it's like, well, why would someone go to my link when they can just go to Seamless? What's the difference? Like, there's nothing unique there. There's no unique offering outside of the fact that, like, oh, if you like me, you'll help me out if you do it this way. And also, it's good for you because Seamless is really good. If you use the lead credits, you'll probably end up buying it. But I asked and was like to one of the folks over there in marketing, I was like, hey, like, can I just give my course away for free if people sign up? Because like the course is already built. I don't have to really do anything outside of great assignments on my side, but they'll get 6.5 hours of video and we both win. And I can finally give the course away for free. As long as you have a business email. And they were like, yeah, I didn't think they were going to let me, honestly. And they're like, yeah, go for it. I was like, all right, shit, like, let's do it. Let's see how it works. Dude, it's worked really well, like really well. Like hundreds of people a month have signed up on it. And like, it's enabled me to, like, I always did, but now I advertise it where it's like, if you're a veteran, it's free. Like it's absolutely free. Right before talking to you, I just got off a call with JR over at Shift Group, where I'm going to partner with them as well. Hey, if you sign up and you're a veteran, this is free too, and they give you assistance with getting hired and everything. Hell yeah, like that works for me. Like why wouldn't I pass them along and help enhance their chance of being able to break in and be able to do well in tech sales? So that's worked really well. But I've considered like, man, maybe that is the model because I'd prefer to not charge anybody anything for training. Courses are a dirty word. Like I'm pretty volatile. When I'm on TikTok, if I see something that bothers me, I'll leave a comment for sure. And I don't have a burner account. So people always are talking shit to me of like, yeah, go sell another course, dude. Cause it is like it's like a slimy indication, right? Like that, oh, you're just like, you're shilling courses. It's like, well, that's number one, it's not true, but also like, wouldn't it be cool if I could do it for free and still find a way to get paid? And that way I'm like really helping any salesperson, no matter what their financial situation is. The brokest ones need the most help, right?
Anybody out there doing, I mean, and you don't need to drop names. When I sold this, I tried to go through, and I'm friends with people that have courses, right? I mean, I get it. I've said on the show that and in my links that hey, look, I think some are more legit than others, right? Is there anybody else doing your model where it's free for the folks out there in terms of that space?
So I don't know the exacts, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe like JB Sales, they don't charge for any of their training. It's
That's
all
right.
leveraged through sponsorship, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
And I like those guys. I've done some of their webinars and everything like that.
Yep.
Obviously, Jed's like entrenched with them, and
Sure.
Jed's the man. I rock with Jed very heavily, ever since Panda Dog days. But I don't think so. I think it's tough. It works perfect for Seamless.
Yeah.
Like Seamless, like the leads have converted with Seamless too. That's the other part, like that. And I haven't even done all the things I think that I can do to help them convert. There's a lot more meat on the bone really to work with, but like it has to be an offering where it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
because the way Seamless works is you don't have to even put in a credit card. You put in a little bit of like info, contact info, and your business email, and you're off. You have 50 free lead credits that you can use. And I get a message that you signed up, and then I enroll your email. By
Mhm.
the way, if anyone's done this and they're like, man, I signed up and it took me like 12 hours, it's like, yeah, you probably signed up in the middle of the night. A lot of times my content will hit people that are in like India or the Middle East or Europe,
Sure.
and then they sign up and then they email me. They're like, I haven't been enrolled. And it's like, oh, I'm asleep. I do it manually. But there's no way to do it automatically. So like I have to enroll them. But it works in that route because it's that MQL or that lead is worth something to Seamless, particularly people that would have interest in the course because it's like a one-to-one perfect. The ICP matches kind of
Mhm.
perfectly. So
Mhm.
it works where it's worth it to them to compensate for that. And it's also worth it to the person that's signing up for the course because they didn't have to put in a credit card. There's no risk that they're going to be dinged for anything. That doesn't work for every company. So that's where I'm at now, where it's like, all right, how can I expand on this with Seamless, who's like my favorite to work with? But then, like, all right, well, I have 20 other courses that are like on the hopper to make over the next year. And it's like, all right, well, some of these would apply better to other companies that I work with, where it's like, all right, is this a model that'll work? I honestly don't know the answer. But my original thought was like, we'll make it and we'll just make it where we coach people on how to get it
Yeah.
expensed
I
because most companies have a learning budget. So it's like, well, what the hell?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And first off, JR has been with me. Great dude,
Hey,
right?
he's the
Love
man.
his
Yeah.
team. Love his team down there. I always
Yep.
tell him to come play defense for the Flyers. Frankly, I need some help, but he's told me no. So the uh the piece of the puzzle. Have you thought about doing an AE one? Have you thought about doing one that
Yeah, I have
is
an AE1 on deck. I can like tell you a little bit because it's probably the next one that I'm going to do. So like my AE strategy is I just did it earlier on a large account. So I know it works on enterprise too, but like it's in theory, but you'll kind of get it. It's a 10-10-10
Mhm.
strategy when it comes to account executives. So you're going to like, you'll think this is weird at first, trust me, because it works really well for transactional or small short sales cycles, SMB to
right?
mid market. 10 minutes of discovery and agenda. If you have slide deck, that's when you would do it also. 10
Yep.
minutes of demo, 10
Yep.
minutes of pricing and negotiation.
Love
People
it.
hear that, they're like, dude, that is absolutely ridiculous. All right, dude, I've sat in on Salesforce's calls. We bought Salesforce at Rocket. They absolutely could use this and it would be it would be square peg, square hole. It would work. But for others, it's like the whole thought is all right, number one, you're probably demoing way too long because you don't know why you're demoing and you don't know what the goal is of your demo. The goal is simple. It's ideal, unique, ease of use. All right. So how can I show them that our solution is ideal for the problems that I've uncovered? We're unique compared to any other competitive differentiators that are out there. And that's how I learned it. I added the third one. Ease of use is as important as the first two. If
Hmm.
if you're unique and you're ideal for the solution, but it's going to take them 3 hours a day to use it, or they
Yep.
think that it's going to be hard for them to use or learn, they might not buy it. There's a high chance they won't buy it. Also, the benefit of the ideal and unique might not be the benefit to the person you're demoing who actually has to use it all day. It might benefit the CEO or the head of the department, but if you're the director and you're going to be the one using the software, do you really care about that shit or do you care that it's going to be easy for you? You probably care a lot more about the ease of use. That's where the 10 minutes comes into play. You can maintain their interest and you can play up the ease of use. This is only going to take me 10 to 15 minutes to cover all the things that are going to help you based on what you just told me in discovery. And then
Love
you
it.
go in, you maintain their interest, and then you get them to peak of impulse. That's when you do your 10 minutes of pricing negotiation. So 10 minutes discovery, the first part, right? Well, you can't do a discovery in 10 minutes. Well, you can if you have a good relationship with your SDR, or if you prospected yourself, you did the right things on the first call. So
Hmm.
if that handoff is executed properly, chances are you can get that done in 10 minutes. Now, there's a chance that you can't. There's a chance that you have to go more in depth and everything like that. But even in those cases, there's probably a chance that you could have done it in 15 or 20 and you still could have done your demo instead of doing 2 different calls or 3 different calls. How can you be as efficient as possible with the time that you have with the prospect when they show up? Because if you have to have another meeting, there's never 100% conversion rate from one meeting to the next. People will drop out of funnel, they will drop off, but there's 100% conversion rate on, all right, if I have you in front of me and I can keep you here and I get through all of those steps, I did, that's 100%. I'm not, there's no guesswork involved. I've got you in front of me. I'm going to make the most out of it. So it's really 3 courses, but it's covering that first 10 minutes, discovery, how to make sure that the handoff is done right. What should you have done on the first call? And then how to set an agenda, how I believe a slide deck should be done with a template on it. 10 minutes of web demo, how to do that, the things that people really aren't taught when it comes to how to demo software. And then 10 minutes of pricing and negotiation. That's where I'm really good. I mean, I'm good at all of them, honestly, but pricing and negotiation, I had, like, legitimately, people don't believe it. I have the spreadsheets to prove it. When I was at Fleetmatics as an AE, my last, I think, 3 to 6 months, and I had outbound and inbound deals, I had an 80% closing percentage on everything that I sat. And I was the AE that would take anything because I wanted the SDRs got control of who they gave the deals to. So I was like, well, give me your bullshit too, because you're going to see that I got it closer to buying or I sold them. Now, when you run into that huge deal, who do you want? You want the guy that was picky, that you're not sure whether or not they can close, bullshit? Or do you want the guy that closed the one that you thought didn't even have a chance? So that's how I built my brand as an AE, and it worked incredibly well. And a lot of it is leveraging all of those things, but some of it might not fit. But it's like, all right, cool. If it doesn't fit, like some of it will. And if you introduce some of this stuff into your process, your closing percentage will go up. Your sales cycle will shorten, and you're going to have a lot higher chance of being able to hit your target and make more money.
Joe, does that sound anything that you believe in, bro? I'm just kind of curious over there.
I was gonna say that sounds pretty close to what we do.
I mean, it is. Joe taught me, like, I came from recruiting, so I'm with your. I did 10 years there, and I came over, and Joe's like, "That's great. Your sales cycle for me, a short recruiting cycle, literally probably would be, I would say, 30 days, maybe 23 weeks. Typical would probably be 2 months, and then you kind of go from there, right? And I would go pretty quickly though. I would do, like maintenance technicians, and there'd be a group of them, and I'd set the event, and would kind of go. But
Yep.
I mean, I was talking 2 month sales cycles for the most part.
Yep.
I come over, and I'm dealing with anything from, a 20-minute sales cycle to a 3 week at the extent. And it was this change in, hey, look, man, some of our best people, and I've been in tech sales 4 years, not comparable to you guys, but what I learned was the people who have some of the higher, President's Club folks are showing the software the least amount of time because they know what to show. They know what's effective. They get right to the point. They show it, and they go, any questions? It's easy to use. Yep. And we're off into the next, and that's it. Now we're talking about really implementation, and really not if you're going to buy it. It's kind of how much and how to structure the deal. That's really it.
Yep. The demo, it's funny, man. People are always like, you never want to do a canned sales pitch. You never want to do a canned demo. But like, dude, if you have a particular report that works well, or even a particular feature that works well, you should be doing that very close to the same way every single time. Because why wouldn't you? It's only going to make your talk track better. But when it comes to the demo, this is like good, like I think sound advice for anybody, and it's definitely going to be in the course. But for anyone that's listening to this, that's an AE, this will help them. So I learned this at Fleetmatics forever ago, back when I was an AE there, and we would show different reports, and like it was GPS tracking, right? So you have like a map, it'll show you a breadcrumb trail where the car went. So like, that's cool. You can show them so what most AEs would do is they'd pull up whatever the live map was and show them the last report that had a breadcrumb trail. Well, one time I bumped into one where the breadcrumb trail was from 2 a.m. and the guy drove speeding to Taco Bell drive-through. It showed he was swerving, showed he was slamming on the gas, slamming on the brakes. Who knows whether he had something to drink or whether he's just being reckless in the car at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m., whenever the hell it was. And it was like, oh, dude, everybody who has vehicles, like a tow truck company that owns 5 vehicles, lets the guys take them home at night, this is the report that they want to see. Yeah. That's how it should be presented. So it's like, all right, well, there's a boatload of different AEs, and all of the AEs probably have run into one of these. Why aren't we sharing them all? Why aren't we showing that feature or that report in the best light possible to elicit a response from the prospect? And that's where, but once you have that and you know it's good, until a better one comes down the pike, I'm running that play until someone can stop it. And the more that I run it, the more confident I get with it, the better it sounds, because I've done it a million times before. right? So like that's it's interesting, but that on the web demo side is like think about all the different things that you show and how could you show it better? Does someone have a better example? Does someone have a story from an existing customer that they're leveraging that you're not? Like, and you should be maxing out every one that you show. And you should only be showing the ones that your prospect cares about based on what your discovery told you. The kiss of death for an AE is, hey, I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm kind of bored. And they just came out with a new feature that I'm excited to show because I'm sick of doing the same thing every day. All right, well, no one gives a shit what you care about. So you better hope that that jives with the person that you just did a discovery with, or you're wasting their time. And what ends up happening is their demo goes from being a 30-minute call to an hour long, and they lost their interest. So when they get to the end and they talk pricing, it doesn't work as well. You don't have them at the peak of impulse on your impulse curve when you're supposed to talk pricing. You already lost them 30 minutes ago. Or the ease of use doesn't come across because they're like, man, I've been on here for an hour. This seems complicated. You want to make it look as easy as possible and as impactful as possible. It ain't tough. It's really not. It's all common sense, but common sense isn't that common right now, and particularly in tech sales.
Please do. There's two things that and look, man, I'm sure you have content that's planned out or you have some ideas in your head. There's two thoughts I probably won't have time to get to here. We could talk for hours on this stuff, man. But the two things that I love, that AE SDR relationship you were hitting on, right? Going, hey man, look, I know it's not perfect. I'm going to help you out, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I tell the things I tell, like, some AEs will say, and look, I was hell, Joe knew I would come to him and he would set me straight. But look, Joe would always say, I think Joe said it, was, hey, look, yes, Dave, the SDR is not perfect in the notes, but how many demos have you screwed up that were good as an AE, right? It's not just a one-way street here, right? There's a lot of softballs that I was given by my SDRs that I just flubbed, and when I hear AEs go, oh, it's the SDR. Well, okay, if you're perfect, hang tight, right? And then the second being that impulse curve. I love I've heard it before. We've talked about it some, like in our organization. I don't think it's talked about enough, right? Of like where you are in that curve, when is the right time? And if it's not there, do you go to pricing yet? If it's not there, or if it's there within the first 3 minutes, hey, it's there, I'm going for it. All those different things. I mean, those are two things I'd love to see you talk on because I think you just touched on a piece of it, and I'm sure there's a lot more there.
Yeah, so you brought it up. I think it was before we got started of like what I learned in door to door that I carried over. The impulse curve is absolutely part of that. So I work for a company. I won't say the name because it was like it essentially like almost multi-level marketing, pyramid schemey type thing. A lot of door to door companies do that. But you basically got a college education in sales while you were there. You weren't going to make any money. No matter how good you were in that entry level role, you weren't making a damn thing. The manager was making essentially all of it. You were making nothing. And you were there on the promise that you could turn into a manager someday if you did all the right things. But that wasn't really the case. It was all politics. It was all how the manager wanted to kind of lay it out. There's a million different factors, right? But they taught the impulse curve for sure. I also learned that excuses of money at the same time from there. One of their top, like whatever they called him, senior national consultant or whatever. He said that at a conference. But the impulse curve, like I think about it all the time, which is like and steps to the sale. I think about it all the time, and I think like that's how people can get really confident in sales. Is like, yeah, it's a daunting thought that when you pick the phone up, you have to get somebody to go from not interested to buying your solution. But it's like you actually don't. You just have to get them from not interested to like familiar. And you have to get them from being a little familiar to being curious, like, oh, well, maybe there's something here, or at least open to a conversation. And then from there, you have to get like where you can pull a little bit of pain, where you might have identified a problem and hinted at a solution, where they might go from being curious to having some interest or a little bit of interest, even enough to have a call. And then you have a call where you demo them and then you build some excitement. That's what's missing in tech sales. I can tell you now, building excitement in car sales where I started, that's where you learn that stuff. Like no one talks about it. No one talks about selling the sizzle of what the things are. And I think when you have all of the things that you learn in tech sales and you can add that to it, that's when people are great. If you can get somebody actually excited, or at least you have the goal of doing that, you're in a better position of being able to do that. But like the way that I always learn is like you close at the peak of impulse and intent. So then you work backwards and it's like, all right, well, how can I most efficiently take them there? How can I make that peak a higher peak? How do I get it as high as possible? Because there's different peaks for different people. Think about deals that you closed. Was everyone just as excited? Was everyone just as bought in? No, but you knew you reached the peak with that person. Now it's time to close. All right, well, how could I have gotten that higher? What could I have done differently? Is there something that I could have done in one of the steps to the sale that would have improved and put me in a better position to be able to do that? All of that originally came from going door to door. The other big thing that helped me on door to door that I still teach people on door to door, literally 2 doors down from me, my neighbor owns a pool cleaning company called Pool Duck, and he's got two 17-year-old dudes who are out there going door to door for him. And dude, they're getting a fucking diploma, dude. Cause I'm like, I love working with guys that are that young that cause I never had me then. So I had no mentors, dude. It took forever. So I was like, dude, I'll guys, if you come in to put in work, I will make sure that you guys make 6 figures within the next few years. And they will, because they're crushing it, dude. Any tech company would be leaping over a desk to get to these guys. That being said, I probably shouldn't have told them to build a LinkedIn because I'm probably talking them up too much because I need them to stay for a bit for my neighbor's case. But they're learning a lot, dude. And part of it that I teach them is when you go from one door to the next, you break down your game tape, right? It takes a little bit to walk to the next door. And you think about, all right, first off, everything's your fault, right? With a positive spin on it, though, because the second that you can just be like, oh, well, that guy was a jerk, you don't learn from that door now. So now you really did fail at that door. But if you can be like, yeah, they might have been a jerk, but like, what could I have done differently to have more control of the situation? What could I try on the next one that's just like that guy to see if I can do something that might work differently? And you're breaking down game tape. This is like, I've told this, but it's been a bit. When I did going door to door, honestly, I don't think it went viral enough because it is fire, was Chinese takeout spots. So I sold Verizon Fios business to business. But they wouldn't let me have the territories that had Fios. So all I could do was bundle plans because when you were good, they didn't give you the good territory. They gave that to the weak people. So because they knew you were going to close no matter what. So I would go in and the goal was to review people's bills, but you had to talk to the owner to get their bill. So every territory in Tampa Bay had like a few different Chinese takeout spots in it. And every time you walked into one, the exact same thing would happen. You'd go in, you'd ask for the owner. They'd say, the owner's not here. He's in China now. Come back 2 years and maybe he'll be here. Happened every single time, some variation of that. You were not getting to the owner. They were trained. So it's like, all right, well, what could I do differently? Right. And like no one thought of this because everyone was like, you can't close them. You can't close them. They've got it figured out. There's no way you're ever going to get to the owner. So I started taking my lunch at ones systematically. I'd go to one every time for lunch. Number one, it was cheap and I was broke as shit. So that helped. Like back then you could get a lunch special for $5 and it would feed you and have dinner. I was like, all right, cool. This is a sound financial decision first off. But then after that, like I would eat the meal there. I'd eat inside there. Sometimes I'd have reps with me and this would be a great trick because it worked every time. And at the end, I'd be like, this is the best Chinese food I've ever had. Is there a chance that the owner's available? I'd just like to compliment him and pay my compliments to him. Dude, they brought him out every time. Every single time the owner would come out and he was ill-equipped to work with a salesperson because he never had to talk to one before, and I'd close every one of them. I'd be like, by the way, I'm your new Verizon rep. I'd like to introduce myself. Do you have your bill handy? I can get a look and make sure that we have you on the right plan because sometimes we don't, blah, 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 blah. And I'd close every one of them. And it like, that's obviously, we're not closing Chinese food places in tech sales, but it's the same concept. The things that seem impossible are really just improbable. You just got to get creative and you have to break down things and you have to blame yourself a bit, but with a positive spin. It's not like you're beating yourself up, but it's like, well, what could I have done differently? If I just thought outside the box, what could I try that no one else is trying that might put me in a position where I can land these that no one else is landing? And then all of a sudden, these ones that are impossible in everyone's territory, now they're bringing me to close all of them because I figured it out. And like, it's that is to me one of the best lessons that people can have in sales. Is like you really can kind of close everybody. It's just you got to get creative a bit on how to do it. And you have to ask yourself, is it worth the bandwidth that it's going to take to be able to put yourself in a position to close them? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But long story short, you break down your game tape, both the negatives and the positives. If things went well, all right, what did I do? I need to make sure that I repeat that. What happened that led me to doing that so I can make sure when I'm in that scenario again, I can repeat it and then get really good at it, where it raises the closing percentage even more. And when you're not doing well, or when you fail at a door or at a call, all right, well, what could I have done differently? All right, let me make note of that. I'm going to try it on the next few calls. And if it works out, I'm going to really lean into it and get really good at it. And that's a lesson that, again, people want to be handed excuses. And it feels better to say, well, that guy was a jerk, but you don't get any money out of calling somebody a jerk. Like you get money out of figuring out what you could have done differently to have better control of the situation. Um, it's controllables versus uncontrollables. You know, I used to run meetings on it. You have two boxes, box of the stuff that you can control, box of the stuff that you can't. And more people take the things that you actually can control and they start putting in that box where I can't control that. I can't control his attitude. I can't control this thing. I can't control that. And it's like, why don't you empty that box back out and take a look? And what if you were forced to have control here? What would you have had to do? And it makes you feel better to put stuff in that box where it's like, I can't control it, because it's like, well, that isn't my fault. I'll move on. But the more that's in that box, the less money you're going to make. And the more that you can get out of that box and put it into the controllable box, it ain't fun, because you're like, man, that was on me. I messed up that. But you also can control it if you get creative and you work at it to get better. And the people that have the most control of their day, the most control of any scenario, are the ones that have the most success, hands down. The people that are the most accountable and do something with that accountability are generally the best salespeople and eventually the best managers, because then they can hold people accountable, because people know whether or not you're BSing them. If you really lived what you're rapping about, then it resonates with the people that you're working with and you're a better leader.
Spot on. Well, look, I'll tell you right now. Usually I had so many things to get to that are a little bit fun in the end, but I'm not, because we were long. Dude, I probably
Sure.
have, I don't know, 8 clips that are 2 minutes long that are fire, right? Like, I'm going to show part of this to my team, Joe. I'll tell you right now. Like, and I need to watch some back personally, quite honestly. Probably, half of this. So, I mean, Troy, dude, we could do this for hours, man. I mean, I know I'm long usually on most shows, but for me, dude, I'm gonna watch this back and go, there's like 9 points I could clip up here. So thanks for being,
Fair enough.
Joe. Thanks for hanging out with me, bro. Like you finally got what you wanted. You guys both have 5 kids. You both have beards. Like
God bless.
I don't have enough testosterone in my body to have like either. Like I'm just happy to have some hair in my head. That's
Hey,
about it.
listen, that's decent.
So, all right, everybody. Long one. That was fire. We're back. I have like 3 or 4 of these to chop up and get out, but we're having Troy back, and hopefully he comes back. But Troy, thanks again,
Yeah,
bro.
for sure, man. Yeah, anytime.
Awesome. All right, boys. Be safe out there.